Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
You and I met at your deposition back in March, I think. Is that right? You said on direct, I believe, that you've been in the injury prevention business. Is that right?
That's correct.
You've also been in the consulting business.
Yes.
Isn't that right?
Yes.
And 80 to 90% of your consulting is related to litigation. Is that true?
That's true.
In fact, most of the cases that you work on involve product liability, like this case. Isn't that right?
Well, most of them involve rollover, like this case. Yes.
And specifically product liability. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
In fact, 80% of the time when you've testified, it has been excuse me, in a product liability case. Is that right?
Might be hungry.
You've been retained on behalf of many automakers, haven't you?
I have.
Those would include General Motors and Ford and Chrysler, right?
Yes.
It would also include Honda and Isuzu and Kia,
Yes.
and Mitsubishi and Nissan,
Yes.
and Subaru, and also a Toyota.
Yes.
And not once in any of those product liability cases have you testified on behalf of a plaintiff like the Hatfields. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Your consulting company, I think, is called Lucinia.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It's Latin for nightingale.
You've been involved in about 60 or 70 litigation cases, or strike that. As of March, you had been involved in about 60 or 70 litigation cases. Is that right?
Sounds about right.
How many more since then?
5 or 6, maybe.
And in all those cases, you've never seen an injury, a neck injury, caused by flexion. Is that right?
That's correct.
In fact, every time you've testified about a neck injury, you have talked about either axial compression or tension. Isn't that right?
What's the whole reason I'm called? That's how they happen.
So it's true, isn't it, that every time you've testified about a neck injury, you've talked about axial compression or tension?
Correct.
Now, in order for an axial compressive load to occur, you need to have impact near the top of the head and coming from something near the vertical. Is that right?
Well, within that sort of cone that I described.
In fact, you believe in something called a cone of catastrophe. Is that right?
I think that was your term.
Well, let's discuss that. We'll hand you your deposition.
I'm not saying I disagree, but yeah, there is a cone of catastrophe.
You don't have a copy? Got an extra bill.
Do you have a page? Just about I do.
Uh, 116, we'll start with line 24. Tell me when you get there, sir.
I'm there.
Do you recall this question and answer? Question. Okay, so when you say alignment, you're talking about impact force to the head. Is that right?
Hold on, Ms. Bowman. Yeah, I mean, there's no
Is it inconsistent?
There's no inconsistent statement here.
The
The
inconsistency.
city would agree with the use of that term.
Well, the inconsistency is that I believe the witness testified that it was not his phrase, and in fact it was.
Just said. He just said that.
Right. The phrase actually was the witness's phrase rather than mine. So that's the point. That's the point I want to make.
If that's the case, I haven't read it.
That's actually not what the transcript says, right?
Well, the transcript says what it says.
No, all right. No, I stand corrected. They both use the term. So
Right.
Go ahead then, Mr. Black.
Would the court like a copy of the transcript?
Now, go ahead.
All right, back to it. 116, line 24. Question. Okay, so when you say alignment, you're talking about the impact force of the head. Is that right? It's like a cone of danger extending 20 degrees. Answer. There is a cone of danger, yes. Question. All right. Does the alignment of the head with the neck matter? Answer. Yes, it does too. That cone dash, there is a cone of catastrophe. Have I read that correctly?
Yes, you have.
Now, you actually drew a picture of the cone of catastrophe in your deposition, right?
Correct.
Oh. And I'm now showing you the exhibits number. Don't show it well in the Elmo, but this is Defense Exhibit 385.14. The trial exhibit number, this was Exhibit 14 to your deposition. Does this show the cone of catastrophe?
Yes, it does.
Right.
Do you want the light on?
It's all right. It's good fine.
We're okay.
Now it's my turn to struggle with technology. There we go. Well, that's going to be good enough for this purpose, I think. So that cone of catastrophe basically comes out of the top of the person's head. Is that right?
I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Does that cone of catastrophe that's now shown up on the wall come out of the top of that person's head?
Sure.
You, in fact, disagree with Dr. Burton about the existence of a wound to the back of Mrs. Hatfield's head. Isn't that right?
Yes.
I want to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 385.6. This was Exhibit 6 to your deposition.
Jack, I mean, there's no,
I think the switches.
not a problem, Your Honor.
Well,
Can we take that down?
Yeah, Mr. Greenway, I just,
Mr. Post.
the wrong light's off in there. If we want the light, there we go. That's what we've been doing. Somehow, the lights get, somebody's messed with our light. So what did you have to say there?
It was just an objection. I mean, it's the witness's notes aren't evidence, Your Honor. It's just hearsay, but
Well, this was something that came from
This is
the
something
deposition.
from the expert's file. I'm not sure what the objection is. Certainly
I'm
an
not sure what the
expert's file.
exhibit is. You say, what is the exhibit that you propose?
Do you want the number or the...
I actually got the number this time. What's
Would you like a copy?
Well,
I have a copy, Your Honor.
it doesn't matter who gives me a copy. I'll look at it.
Well, we'll race to the bench. Yeah, this is from the expert's file. It talks about the way he prepared to give his testimony in this case. Something he provided as a deposition. It's on the defense exhibit list. It talks.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. We're looking now at Defense Exhibit 385.6, which was Plaintiff's Exhibit 6 to your deposition. You recognize this from your notes?
I do. I'm going to pull out my copy since I'm at that age where I can't see that. I can't see this.
I've got an extra copy for you if you want to keep it at home.
You have any?
I have the original here.
Copy of the correct.
Yeah. This is perfectly. This is.
Yeah. Now, we talked about the possible scenarios you discussed just a minute ago, right?
Right.
And that's right here in the January 31, 2013 teleconference with Exponent. Is that right?
Correct.
And when y'all discussed these various possibilities, the 4 team, to include whatever lawyers were on the phone and whatever experts, concluded that the injury happened in the first roll when the roof struck the ground. Isn't that right?
As I recall, the only people on that teleconference were me and Dr. Carhart. And he was just going over the physical evidence, and we were talking about the 3 possibilities for when it happened. And which of those possibilities was most consistent with the physical evidence. And I think he arrived primarily at the conclusion, and I agree, that it happened on the first roll.
That is, when the roof struck the ground rather than anything having to do with the trees. Is that right?
That's my recollection, yeah.
And in fact, that recollection is confirmed, or strike that. In fact, your recollection is consistent with a previous teleconference that you had with whoever was on the call, this on 12/12/12, where you noted that the injury most likely in the first roll, given what was then known about the kinematics. Is that right?
Yes.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, I think that you testified on direct that there had been approximately a half dozen meetings with lawyers and experts on the forward team. Is that right?
No, we never met. We had telephone conferences.
And in fact, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 such teleconferences as of March 5th, 2013. Is that right?
Actually, I just object, is incorrect. One of those is just my meeting with the witness prior to his deposition. It's not a telephone conference,
I'll
but 7 is a fair number.
I'll rephrase the question. There have been at least those 10 occasions in which at least one lawyer and one expert for the forward team were beaten. Is that right?
Well, the first one was about 3 minutes because Dr. Carter couldn't get on, so we didn't meet then. But so taking that one out, yeah, I mean, however many you counted up.
How many have there been since March 5th, 2013?
Oh, I'm sure there have been. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. I don't recall. I don't recall very many. Most of it was, by then our depositions were over, and then I don't think we had very many teleconferences since then. But I don't recall.
Can you give us anything near an approximate number? Approximately 2, approximately 6? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm sure we spoke, but I don't know how many times.